Hi, I'm Cyril Penn, editor for Wine Business Monthly and winebusiness.com, and we're here in our office in Sonoma. My guest is Danny Brager. Danny is the Vice President and Group Client Director for Beverage Alcohol at the Nielsen Company. Danny follows the wine market, knows a lot about consumer behavior, and I have some questions for him. Welcome, Danny.
Thank you. Good to be here, Cyril.
Let's talk about channels. You told us a little bit about the various channels that Nielsen tracks. How is wine performing differently in those different channels?
I think that's, to me, a great question, because it's one of the things that we've really seen a separation of channel performance. I think in large respect as a barometer of what's going on in the economy these days. So I'd say there's two pieces to that. One is, again, what's the consumer doing generally in the face of the economic pressures? They're certainly reprioritizing what they consider to be discretionary purchases and what they consider to be necessity purchases. And they're cutting out some of the frills and luxuries, just again in general terms. And that in itself is affecting where they shop. Their focus on basics and value is taking them to certain channels and away from others. The second is just to recognize that amidst everything that's going on, retailers are hurting too, and they're actively looking for categories that do things like bring them more traffic or improve their profit margins or increase the size of their overall shopping baskets. So they're looking for categories that do those things for them, and wine is one of the categories that does increase traffic to their stores, and it does increase the size of the overall consumer shopping basket, because when consumers buy wine, they also buy a lot of other things that go with it. And so it's a category that's frankly it's coveted. So while on an overall basis we can look at a net decrease in some store counts associated with certain channels, if we look at store counts associated with those selling wine, we're actually seeing increases. So the net of all that is channels and retailers that are focused on value and that are offering a broad range of necessities and necessity items are benefiting. So I would put channels like grocery stores and super centers, the Walmarts of the world, Targets of the world, club stores, the Costcos and Sam's of the world, as all channels that are benefiting from the consumer pressure, from the consumer economic pressures. And when consumers are in those places, wine is obviously there where it's legal to sell, and often it may not even be part of a planned purchase, but consumers are buying wine there as well. Convenience stores and drugstores are also increasing, and in some respects, that's a reflection of those retailers operating in those channels, seeing the benefits of selling wine as a category. Again, increasing traffic, boosting margins, increasing shopping baskets, and so on. And just as one simple example, but significant example, Walgreens is now rolling out licenses to 5,000 plus stores across the country who are now selling wine. Walgreens previously had decided not to sell wine in those stores and now is. So obviously a huge increase in the presence of wine as a category to consumers. So on the other hand, it's putting more pressure on those channels that sell wine, that might only sell wine and don't offer a broader range of goods, and that represent a very conscious discretionary trip for the consumer. So for instance, liquor stores, the consumer has to consciously decide they're going to get in their car and they're going to go to a liquor store for the purposes of buying beer or wine or spirits. Unlike going to a grocery store where they might buy a whole lot of things they need and then also decide they might opt to buy other categories such as wine. So those retailers, liquor retailers, they're having a tougher time. Again, separate shopping trip. They don't offer a broad range of goods. They have trouble competing with sort of mega retailers on price, so they have to find other things in which to compete. And especially the sort of the independent liquor store, the smaller liquor store, is really challenged these days. If we take it even broader than that, and channel shifting again just representing a pretty significant factor, we all know that there's a pretty significant migration from the on-premise to the off-premise. So for instance, we just looked at the last quarter, and usually quarter three reporting for 35 major casual and fine dining operators, and we looked at their same-store sales. 34 of 35 of them were in decline, and the average same-store sales decrease was 8.5%. I mean, those are huge, significant decreases It's not gotten better over the last 6 months, and anything that we read or hear or see doesn't suggest that it's going to get better anytime soon. So we would still suggest that going into 2010 and for as far out now, at least as we can see, that the opportunity is still for at-home occasions, whether that be for consumption with for people on their own, for with their families, or for entertaining.